The idea of peace to some people is terrible. It's the worst nightmare they can think of. The reason this is true is because they've seen societies where the people who seek peace are subjected to unspeakable acts. People who can't defend themselves are subjects to nightmare. People only have rights and laws are only effective in such societies when the people who are weak arm themselves and fight back. One such society is the city of Pittsburgh. It wasn't unusual to find a cat with 30 babies in it in that city. The story that comes out of the Ukraine of a Holocaust survivor who had been in Dachau, whose life was ended in the Russian barrage, shows a moral, if you look at it, of there being no escape. Surely nobody sane could relish or think that a poet would relish people knowing that after they were tortured as a child and deafened, the perpetrators gained the upper hand and chemically castrated them, especially when the person is a man who is still in love. When I was a child, being forced to learn the really intense dynamics of the Jewish Holocaust by drama, guerrilla theater, they called themselves, from Israelis who kidnapped and tortured me. I also read about Nuremberg, where a story came out that a man who was older than a poor Jewish boy who was earmarked for vivisection gave up his own loins to save this young man. He said, "Use me instead." And the young man learned of it at Nuremberg and wept. Nobody wept for me. It's just as horrible. I've come to the point where I see what's being done to Greta Thunberg as what for me was the most monstrous of all movies, Zuzu the Sent Down Girl, a girl of good faith sent into the countryside who was used and then murdered. Will Zell, who worked on stalking me and staking me out for the British and intellectual circus in the city of Pittsburgh, appears to have been Edgar Snyder, among other people. People who murdered the Kennedys, including Circe, and more recently, two other members of her family. A crime JFK Jr. Probanik of Pittsburgh went to watch. Zoe on Mount Desert Island had been sending me pictures of Greta Garbo missing an eye. And he said he referred to the movie It, which is a terrible torture movie. A girl's kept in a room and brought a rat to eat. He said it tried. See, these people are cold-blooded sadists. One of them, Peckham, was in vivisection. They used monkeys. At Pitt, when I protested vivisection, they made it a point to come walking out with the monkeys. These are people who poisoned me in my mouth. They came walking out with the monkeys to laugh at me in the lunchroom. Paraded them by in cages, like, what are you going to do about a pussy ball? I used to talk in the Pit News about a Holocaust of neglect. When I looked at Africa, there was a Holocaust of neglect. I thought if we could get information to them, maybe we can work together to end hunger. What would be better? Be a wonderful thing to do. As many people know, the lopers behind all of the attacks are driven with greed and hate and run by Yoko Ono and the Warhol Foundation. And they claim that they have victim escalation dominance because they can inject you with HIV, and some of them have died of AIDS. And we know that's the rhetorical, that's the forked tongue they speak with. That's how the vipers and the snakes of the whole situation. That's the end of it. I mean, they rip her hat or the innocent bystander and say la vie. It was a white man, but he was Christianizing for the black man and so on and so forth. I mean, it gets deranged. The Green Party just, they just shuffle their lies. They play leapfrog with their dishonors. But when Lenin posted his message, on the door of perception, the Philadelphia Inquirer had a scales that had all these musical notes and one bullet. One bullet outweighed all these musical notes. One bullet was heavier and more meaningful, and all of Pittsburgh went like, "Oh, Swami Nostra, Swami Nostra, we have seen the light." So it was a question for them of how to humiliate. Who gets humiliated? Who owns the narrative of humiliation? Peace is the laughing stock. And Schadenfreude was a comic tendency in Germans' bloodlust during World War II. Schadenfreude was a notorious gloating at people who they were shooting from the back. And you see Schadenfreude in black fascism. Richard Wright, a black literary giant from Harlem Renaissance, warned that this might happen. So you ultimately, what you come back to is the script that was written by Gail Burstyn, which she says, "Ain't it weird how all I wanted to say has already been written?" So, like Raymond Geiger used to say to me, well, when they were out in Philadelphia with Maxfield Parrish painting who painted these idyllic, paradise scenes of the naked youth on a swing in the mountains and the clouds and stuff. And the gargoyles of Philadelphia, "Hey, Marshfield, paint us some of that paradise stuff." Well, this is the loping of the mind at the University of Pittsburgh. All has already been written. Swami knows that. Give us some of the peace stuff, queerball. So if you look at the dialectic that exists, for example, in the attention span, I mean, Fridays for Future was quite upset about this. They said, what's the slap in the face matter compared to the starving hordes facing climate change drought? By the wayside, would you look at World Central Kitchen's activities in the Ukraine? These are great heroes risking their lives, really risking their lives. Of course, along comes Russia to trot up the doorstep of the attention span for the 15 minutes of fame in Warhol. Surely you don't believe we're like Nazi Germany. And they committed a blasphemy of hitting a nuclear reactor and threatening with nuclear bombs. Well, calm down. I don't think you're like Nazi Germany. I've seen your films, House of Fools. Not Russia does not believe in tears. I know you have some excellent talents. I mean, they call them disposable trophies because those young girls are worked to the breaking point so that they can win a gold medal or something. But life goes on afterwards for them. They're not put to sleep, you know. The intellectuals of even the Soviet Union, like Mikhail Bakhtin, it's just great, but now it's just not a particularly good time because There's too many questions. Zelensky, it seems, indexes out to me, and Putin seems indexed to their sob story about, no, Jimmy Carrey was just after sex, put it in. Then Oliver Stone meets with these trip dudes, you know. So what we're saying, I think, is a war zone, a battle royal, saying want to make some of it, because if you want to make some of the fact that we released AIDS out of desperation about the overpopulation and COVID, come make something of it, but it's going to go nuclear and they're going to lose real quick. So you better get back to your mind, your business is how it looks like it may be. And Omar is like saying, oh, let's make common cause. That comes back to UW and people like Cho. The only common cause they understand is common cause of pure absolute hatred. They are driven with hatred. To them, Malcolm X, the hate that hate produces an absolute of common cause. And they so I mean it's ridiculous. You know, they when they touch on the Penis Gabriel's secretary wants everybody on death row. Diamond Gullis was in on the AIDS attack, and she's the one with Zell making 911 injection threats and stuff like that. They want everyone on death row, all hands on deck. Then the sword of Damocles is hanging over everybody's head, right? And they can get mobs. I mean, they can get hordes. I mean, they can get stampedes. I mean, they can get stadiums filled of raging, bellowing warriors, warriors of black culture at the snap of their white fingers. And there's nothing anybody can do about it because they control the media state. And they decide who gets 15 minutes of fame and who gets blamed for things like God knows what. I had nothing to do with John Lennon's note on the door of perception. Nothing to do with it. But the black man says you did it because your performativity is it's that we need to suck you dry for free to calm the raging hordes facing the fossil fuel drought because Exxon is an equal opportunity employer. Pitt range neurohypnosis, and Penis Gabriel was in on neurohypnosis. I know what that means. Well, I didn't. I didn't know they'd used a neurological implant. You know, and they got me to say Pitt skinny dips in Sun City on the headline of one of the anti-apartheid articles. They were laughing. Look, that skinny boy, he was dipping in Sun City with the Indian girl from Darby Endle, right? And Charles gonna get him. Zell's gonna get him. You know, so this is what's happening during Glasnost. 13 minutes of promotion by these backbites from the University of Pittsburgh who murdered my father. And the Swami Nosa kingdom loved Dostoevsky's refrain, ah, you affront to us all, liberal idealist. You know, how romantic Dilip was with Antonio D, Filomeno D, Filomeno D, knowledge of men when they overdose. Mighty Nostra, Swami Nosa. You liberal idealist, you are so great. They had an Indian slander. You are so great. Gail Bereston used to say, you are so great. It meant you are a piece of shit. Then they would say it to your face. So what they had in mind when they annihilated JFK was the bullet on the scales outweighing the musical notes. He wants peace for all time, we'll give him peace for all time. And of course, they humiliated him in ways that were more evil than they humiliated even Martin Luther King. They stole JFK's wife. They planted a wife on him, and they did the same thing to me. Rosa Clemente can go to the jumping holler with Aaron Dixon to the heart's content. Rosa Monteleone was sent to me from Trumpy Tune for the Green Party. It's that simple. The Trumpy Tune put Rose on me the same way that Onassis put Jacqueline on JFK. It was a time-honored tradition of wife weaponizing humiliation by these insane people who call themselves warriors, warriors, and hate the idea of peace. I'm calling Reagan if you say peace, you traitor. You know, they're really sick in the head. That's one thing that I got from the University of Pittsburgh is that the people there are sick, sick, sick in the head. They are really sick in the head. And all that you wanted to say has already been read. Give us some of that peace stuff, Max. So give us some of that paradise stuff, you know. So, you know, you end up with this feeling that it's all for nothing no matter what you do, you know. And they say, you care about Africa. Well, come. Why would you care about Africa? Look how much they care about you. And it's true. I mean, they have black Schadenfreude Africans all over Seattle and Pittsburgh just laughing and laughing and laughing every time I did anything nice. You know, he's the one who got castrated. You know, and this is like the Warhol, Zelensky, Putin, Trumpy tune scene through and through. Now, I agreed with Zelensky about U-24. I'm not saying I know for a fact everything that's going on, but they play little, you know, pigeon steps, you know. The moths will be magnetized to the ideal. And Straub was queer, right? And he joins the Green Party, so you must validate queerdom, no matter what queers do to you. You must validate the moth magnet of queerdom. You know, and they put up, you know, a figure skater who's contains the energy of your celestial acceptance by, you know, the Will Smith scene. Your celestial acceptance. If you say good things about the queer movement, you won't have to resign from the academy. Ooh, aren't you lucky, lucky? So, really, ultimately, you know, what they're selling about the children who were killed in the Ukraine is that it's just one more ancient grudge, queerball. This is a solid theme that goes throughout American intelligence and academia. It's one more ancient grudge, and it's far from the most important one. These are people who have controlled the media mecha puppet show Super Tower. People like Tim Kaine, Joe Manchin, Mitch McConnell play leapfrog around terrible dishonor to facilitate the oil oligarchs of the Cold War system with any serviceable hypocrisy available. And they will die before they admit that Reagan was in cahoots with Hitler's regime and that an extreme intelligence faction in the USSR knew about Oswald. And the Trumpy tune Putinese has been in the making a long time because it would force them to review their premises about whether or not we need rationing of fossil fuels to save the planet, whether children are really expendable. Oh, queerball, you think your importance as a child is equal to the ancient grudge of the Holocaust survivors. Whoa, UW sociology is going to have to poison you in the mouth. It's the way that they reason. And until you get it through your head that these people are solidly psychotic on the level of reasoning, you're not going to be able to vie with them.